on to our final video for chapter 2, where we're going to save the state of the room and drop the player's inventory upon death. So let's start by adding some extra tools to my script for inventory tools. So let's go through and open this script if you don't already have it open, which is SCR inventory tools. And we want to add a few things. I want to add a method to spawn an item, and this one's a little bit involved. So we'll make a function here called spawn item, and we can just take the name of the item, so underscore item. We can also include some random scattering, so like if we want to have it like kind of when a monster dies, it like drops a potion in a random direction. So this is an optional variable. And another optional variable for keep on map. So let's get the size of the sprite. Now keep in mind, item is that data type item that we're going to pass in here. So it's not the string, this is actually the item. So it's going to have instance variables. So we'll say var sprite x equals sprite underscore get width of item underscore UI sprite. And we're going to do the same thing for sprite y, except for it'll be height. Oh, and this shouldn't be an underscore, this is dot, since that is a field of the item object. Then we're going to spawn the item. So var thing equals instance creates layer. Now this is where the position will come into play. So the item will need a position to get created at. So item position x minus the sprite x divided by 2. Doing the same for the y. Item dot position y minus sprite y divided by 2. That's because the origin of these sprites is in the top left. If we had centered the origin, we would change this. So keep that in mind. Right now, I'm just using the same sprites for the world as well as the inventory, but it might be better to have two separate ones. The layer we want to spawn on is instances, and we are spawning the object item underscore item dot world object, which is most likely going to be obj item, but it gives us the flexibility to spawn other types. So set some variables on the new item. So that keep in mind, this is usually going to be an object item. So thing dot sprite index equals underscore item dot UI sprite. So we set the graphic. We set the name. So item name gets set equal to underscore item dot item name. And then the keep on map, since we just spawned this, will be based off of the keep on map variable. And then if we want a random scatter, if random was true, then thing.direction equals, I usually use integers for this, irandom range, 0 to 360. And then thing.speed, random range, let's go 8 to 10. And then friction, so it eventually slows down, 0.6. So it kind of like scatters in a direction, random direction from where it drops. Now we would want to put this to use. So let's create the methods for dropping items from my inventory. So function inventory underscore drop, and then we want the index of which thing from my inventory, because remember my inventory is a list, and so we want the index of what thing from the list to drop. So var item was global.manager.inventory bracket vertical bar using index. So like I said, the inventory is a list, so we're just using this index to get whatever thing. So this is probably going to be the player's X and Y. And then remove it. So that would be ds underscore list delete. So the list we're deleting from is the global manager inventory index, and then spawn it. And that's just a call to our spawn item method that we just created. And we're spawning item with true and true. We want it to be random because this is probably coming from a drop, and we want it to remember if we walk off the stage. Then a convenient method to make our lives a little bit easier, a function inventory underscore drop all. And this is just going to drop everything. So now keep in mind your equipped item will stay equipped because we don't really have an unequipped behavior. So we're going to let the player hold on to whatever they did have equipped. So while ds list size, so while there are things still in the inventory, we will call inventory drop 0, and that will kick that thing out of your inventory. So the 0th item, so the thing leftmost inventory gets dropped, but it's going to happen like instantaneously, so it doesn't really matter. And then that will drop everything. So now we're done with this. So we could go to the, I believe the player handles are running out of health. So let's jump over to the player real quick. And we want to pull up the end step. So the end step, we had this to do to drop our inventory. So let's actually use it. Let's just say inventory underscore drop all. Now let's test. We should drop all of my inventory, but we haven't set up the ability to remember this yet. So when I run out of health, oh, we crash. Item name is not set before reading it. So that was probably back in item struct. It was just called name here. So that's probably the issue. And if I recall, I did change this to, I wanted to change this to item name because name is a reserved word. So just change this to name and we should be, item underscore name, and we should be good. All right, so we pick up things, we run out of health, and now my item's dropped. But when I press space to respond, they get eaten because when the level reloads itself, those weren't on the map originally. So, and the permanence was taking effect, so they don't respawn at their normal spawn point. So what we need to do is remember what was on the map when we exit the map. So this is kind of the next part. So up in our game manager, in the begin step, we want to store the information of the items still on the map. So on map load here, we want to remember the keep on map items. And then there's our code for loading the next map. So let's create a list. And actually, while I'm thinking about creating lists, we need to, in cleanup, because we created this map, we need to delete that. DS map destroy. Forgot about that on the last video. All right, back to begin step. So we want to make a room list. Well, let's just call this room item list. DS list create. So we create a list of the items in the room, and let's go through and check which items want to be remembered. So we'll just loop for, we're not deleting this time, so we don't need to loop backwards. I'll just do for I is 0. I is less than instance number of obj items. I++. Like I said, we're not looping. We're looping forwards because we're not deleting things, so we don't need to worry about like indexes changing when we delete stuff. So if the item wants to be remembered, add it to this list. So var thing equals instance find obj item comma I. So that's my current item. If thing dot keep on map is true, then add it to that list. So we're going to create an item type out of it. So we're basically using items to retain the data. So item dot items. And then we're going to remember its position. And then add it to the list. Oh, did I miss my underscore here? I don't know what it's mad about there. Oh, it's a period. DS list add room item list comma item. So that adds it to the list. Now we want to remember the list. So outside of the for loop. So store this item. So we'll make the key for it, the name. So we're going to remember this list by the name of the room. So we're going to get the name of the room and then concatenate load on it. And then we're going to store this in the permanence, the data permanence map. So we're going to store it into there. So then when we load a new room, we need to retrieve this and see if there's anything inside of it we need to care about. So whenever we leave a room, it backs up all the items on there. So I'm going to move on to my room starts. This is actually going to be a little bit quicker. So at the very bottom here, we want to respawn any items that wanted to be keep on map. So if the map key exists, ds map exists in data underscore permanence, room get name plus underscore load. So we're checking to see if that key exists. If so, we know that the key exists, and then we should get the list. Data permanence, question mark, and then using that same key string that we were doing. So we grab a copy of the list, loop through the list, spawning all the items on it. So ds list size, and this is room item list I++. So we can just reuse that spawn item command that we have, accessing room item list at index I. Remember, the syntax of this is a little bit weird. We don't need it to be random. We want it to be a fixed position, but we do want that item to remember itself, no matter how many times we leave. And then destroy the list. So that will effectively null out the list, but we're not going to access it again, so it should be fine. All right, so if we hit play, we should have some success here. Okay, so let's pick up one item. Nothing crashes. Everything is being remembered. Now we end up getting defeated. We drop our item. We hit space to respawn. We come back in from where we started. Now, it forgot to do that, which is disappointing. So the issue that was cropping up here was that when we respawn ourselves, we're becoming unslain before the map actually loads. And so we have a moment to pick up an item. So I'm going to take that out of there. And then I'm going to go back over to begin step. And then right when we're about to load this new map, after we've spawned all the items, we're going to put the code right here. So we'll do if stats HP is greater than 0, then we'll be unslain. Because that's how we re-trigger our new maps, is that we load it and then do this. So let's verify. Because the spear was so long that I was picking it back up, is what was happening. And then if I leave, come back, those items are still there. And now based on whatever item I have equipped, and that little jump that we saw actually has to do with the object origins, and that's actually kind of a problem that isn't worth fixing. That's more related to the issue of we didn't center them. We were using a lot of different ways to calculate how to spawn these. But either way, this should be a pretty good way to conclude our chapter 2. So we've got a really functional inventory system that remembers the state of these things when we when we either reload the map or leave the map or come back. So in the next chapter, we're going to start putting enemies in so that we can actually have something to fight against. And so that will add the ability for us to actually start building challenges out of this game. And so I'm excited for it. Excited for you to join me in the Chapter 3 series of videos. And I will see you then. Enjoy your awesome inventory system.